Under orders of the day, motions other than government motions. Motion 507, Mr. Shepherd.
The honourable member for Edmonton Centre.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is truly my pleasure to rise today to bring motion 507 to the floor for debate. Over the last 6 months, I've been working with local musician and studio engineer and producer Tom Bennett and City of Edmonton Councillor Scott McKean on the Edmonton Live Music, or ELM, initiative. This is an initiative to enhance and increase the presence and value of live music in Edmonton by offering support to new and existing venues, by considering changes to the Alberta Gaming and Liquor Commission, or AGLC, regulations, and in partnership with the City of Edmonton through the Edmonton Arts Council, exploring how we can best support and remove the barriers to the culture of live music within our city and around our province. This motion today supports the work of the ELM initiative by urging the government to consider reviewing and encouraging changes to the AGLC regulations to accomplish this goal, including the possibility of allowing venues which host live music to stay open and provide service 1 hour later. Now, Mr. Speaker, Alberta is home to an amazing array of incredibly talented musicians. This is evidenced by the incredible number of talented performers that we have catapulted onto national and international stages, including such stalwarts as Ian Tyson, Katie Lang, Tommy Banks, Jan Arden, Cor Blunt, Feist, Junior Gone Wild, Shout Out, 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 and the Smalls. This continues with a steady climb of newer artists such as Michael Ralt, Faith Healer. Yeah, that too. Well, there are some famous, the Emeralds. How could I forget the Emeralds? And of course, we have many new artists coming up like Michael Rowlett, Faith Healer, Ruben in the Dark, Purity Ring, Joe Nolan, the Wet Secrets, and the band formerly known as Viet Cong. Mr. Speaker, all of these bands have one thing in common. They cut their teeth and perfected their skills in venues right here in Alberta. Our province has an incredible wealth of institutions which provide fertile soil for an incredibly rich and diverse music scene. Through post-secondary programs offered through MacEwan University, Red Deer College and Mount Royal University, arts-focused elementary and secondary schools like Victoria School for the Performing Arts, and independent initiatives like Edmonton School of Song and the School of Rock, we consistently generate an incredible number of skilled and talented musicians, performers, and songwriters. These performers, in turn, are supported by local radio stations such as CKUA, CJSR in Edmonton, CJSW in Calgary, and CKXU in Lethbridge. And once they're established, they have the opportunity to play at the dozens of festivals which take place across our province every year. But their first opportunity to practice and hone their craft, the first thing to which they are able to aspire, is the stage at their local music venue. And Mr. Speaker, over the last few years, Edmonton has seen the loss of many beloved venues, which were loved for offering that chance. Local venues are the lifeblood of a music scene, providing musicians a chance to cut their teeth and local residents the opportunity to discover and support up-and-coming acts. They bring vitality to our communities and create cultural hubs which support and celebrate our local communities and draw business to other nearby restaurants, cafes, and shops. This, in turn, makes our communities more attractive places to live, drawing in businesses and young professionals. And in cities like Austin, Nashville, Memphis, London, Melbourne, or Berlin, music tourism generates millions of visits, billions in revenue, and thousands of jobs. Mr. Speaker, given the incredible cultural resources here in our province, with focused work and effort, we could begin to lay a real foundation for the same. So in terms of the motion, Mr. Speaker, it's common knowledge that liquor sales play a key role in the profitability of live music venues. Therefore, one of the most effective ways we can support these venues and ensure their long-term sustainability is to ensure the regulations surrounding these sales work in venues' favor and not against them. One way we could possibly do this is by extending the hours of service for venues hosting live music by 1 hour to 3 a.m. This suggestion was presented to the ELM initiative by one of their board members, the former Senator Tommy Banks. According to the senator, prior to 1960, Alberta had largely been a dry province, where the only alcoholic beverage you could order in a bar or restaurant was a glass of beer. Other adult beverages were required to be smuggled into one of the local ballrooms or nightclubs. However, in 1960, the government of Premier Manning moved to allow that under very strict regulation. Dining lounges and their attached bars would be permitted to serve alcohol until midnight, Monday through Saturday. However, from Monday to Friday, a venue could serve until 2 a.m. if they offered entertainment consisting of at least a three-piece musical act. To quote the senator, "Only an arithmetic-challenged idiot would fail to see the benefits and fail to take advantage of such an offer." Accordingly, the music scene in Alberta exploded. According to the senator, Edmonton soon boasted no less than 15 live music venues within one block of Jasper Avenue between 100th and 109th Street, all of which hosted live music 6 nights a week. And musicians in Edmonton went from a select few scratching out a meager living to hundreds that worked full-time. This remained the case well into the late 70s and the new Liquor Control Act of 1980. Now, of course, I recognize that now that we have much more liberal legislation in place, making tweaks to the regulations aren't going to have nearly so dramatic an effect. However, allowing venues hosting live music that additional hour of service could help provide a much-needed boost in revenue that helps them offset the costs of paying musicians and maintaining the equipment required for live music. Now, currently, the regular hours of sale and service set by the Gaming and Liquor Regulation are 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. However, as we've seen in the past, the AGLC regularly considers requests for extended service hours. These are evaluated on a case-by-case basis with consideration given to the scale of the event and the operating track record of the licensee making the request. For example, during the 2014 Olympic Games, the AGLC authorized a blanket approval across the province for early liquor service for the gold medal hockey game. The AGLC also, yes? Thank you. And the AGLC also allows early openings for licensed establishments in Calgary during the Stampede. And so far, the AGLC has not received any reports of concerns or issues with these practices. Of course, any decisions related to extending liquor service past 2 a.m. would have to be based on broad support from industry and community stakeholders, as well as the public. And consideration would have to be given to the broader impacts of extending liquor service in regards to policing needs, availability of transportation and transit, and other necessary services. However, I'm pleased to report, Mr. Speaker, that the AGLC remains open to discussions and that they've stated that they're committed to maintaining an innovative liquor model, responsive to industry and consumer trends and considerate of public safety and obligations of social responsibility. Now, while today's motion is mainly focused on this extension of the hours of service, it's my hope that opening these discussions could allow us to consider some other innovations as well. For example, for smaller venues like Edmonton's Blue Chair Cafe, which is geared around offering dinner and a show, or the hopefully soon-to-be-open Aviary. These such venues don't have an interest in extended hours and staying open until 3 a.m. But perhaps instead we can consider offering such venues a small reduction in the provincial liquor markup rates. Any loss of revenue from this reduction would likely be offset by increased sales at the larger venues who do choose to stay open later, which would make the proposal effectively revenue neutral. Or we could explore removing the regulations introduced in 2007, which forbid underage musicians from playing in licensed venues. This is a cause that's been championed by Terry Evans of Edmonton station K97, who I met with a couple weeks myself, himself the father of a talented young musician. And as he pointed out to me, this is a form of apprenticeship that is allowed in Ontario, Manitoba, BC, and Saskatchewan that gives advanced young musicians the opportunity to hone their skills and gain valuable experience by working with and being mentored by older musicians. And in turn, this grows the audience for live music by drawing out their family and friends. We could also examine ways to ease restrictions on hosting all-ages shows and independent hall shows, helping us create a new generation of Albertans who truly appreciate and support a culture of live performance. In the years I spent playing with longtime Edmonton musical icon Mr. Mike McDonald, I heard many stories of the vibrant music scene of the 1980s and how so many bands, including his now reunited band Junior Gone Wild, thrived in a culture of independent hall shows. Young promoters capitalized on their entrepreneurial spirit, helping develop the local music community while honing their own business skills. Finding ways to provide easier access to liquor licenses for these kinds of shows could improve access to live music in areas outside the urban.
Honourable Member, your time is concluded. But under Standing Order 8.3, it provides for up to 5 minutes for the sponsor of a motion other than a government motion to close debate. I would invite the Honourable Member for Edmonton Centre to close the debate on motion 507.
Well, thank you so much to everyone that's risen and spoken today. It's fantastic to hear so much support for an issue that is truly very near and dear to my heart. I'm very happy that Mr. Tom Bennett was able to join us here today. As I mentioned earlier, the driving force behind the Elm Initiative. Mr. Terry Evans, great supporter of young musicians here in Edmonton. Mr. Speaker, we're incredibly fortunate. And Mr. Speaker, we're incredibly fortunate that in this province we have so many people who are deeply passionate about and committed to growing our local music scenes. You know, I've been greatly encouraged watching musicians, promoters, booking agents, people that have spent decades here in the trenches, people that I came up through the Edmonton music scene with, rising into positions in municipal and provincial government where their dedication to live music has the potential to yield great dividends for our music communities. Many of these individuals are deeply involved in discussions with colleagues in other provinces, with an eye to growing more Canadian municipalities as music cities, cities with thriving grassroots music scenes that generate measurable value for their local economies and communities. So again, I thank everyone who's risen and spoke today. I thank the member from Ponoka-Lacombe for his thoughts on the potential challenges and how some of these, how we'd have to examine how some elements of this bill might be defined. I think that's an important consideration, something we need to look at closely to make sure that any adjustments to the regulations don't leave loopholes that could be exploited. We'd want to have to make sure that we worded things very carefully to ensure we achieve the intended benefit of supporting the hiring of professional live performers. I also appreciate the considerations you brought forward about potential effects in smaller communities where there may not be transit services or as many taxis available. That's certainly something that's important to consider, and for that reason I'd certainly want to ensure that in considering these changes we had good conversations with police, municipal authorities and community stakeholders to make sure we got their views on how we can mitigate those kinds of potential effects. I also really appreciate the the member from Calgary Fish Creek's observation that, you know, that performers do become great leaders, advocates, and activists in their community. I know for myself that the skills I learned and that I honed on the stage played a large role in leading to my standing in this House today. So those are incredibly important and very transferable skills, Mr. Speaker. And as he noted, we have many other cultural and musical resources across the province. Certainly the National Music Centre in Calgary is another one of those that we could couple with a vibrant music scene to create a much stronger music tourism industry here in our province. And of course, more vibrant music scenes in our larger urban centres support musicians who then play all across our province. So it's a benefit to all communities in Alberta, as many of these musicians then go on to play in festivals and venues in smaller areas around Alberta, and areas like playing at things like the North Country Fair, the South Country Fair, Pembina River Nights, the Canmore Folk Festival, or even smaller venues like the Twin Butte General Store. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, a vibrant culture of live music has strong economic spin-offs. It supports local recording studios, music stores, other businesses. It has spin-offs that benefit other cultural groups as well. There's an enormous amount of potential here, enormous opportunity. We have so many wonderful musicians that we grow here in this city, so many institutions that help nurture that. I think taking this opportunity, we could really look at continuing to develop and truly benefit from a great cultural resource here in this province. So thank you again to everybody for your support on this motion today, and I look forward to the opportunity to open discussions.
Thank you, Honourable Member. It seems appropriate that everyone else mentioned venues that weren't here, but it seems appropriate that you would have somebody who's live here today. So, the Honourable Member, on the motion as proposed by the Honourable Member for Edmonton Centre, all those in favour of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. No. Motion is carried.